Welcome back, focused learners, to another edition of The Explainer. Today, we're exploring a totally fascinating frontier of medicine. It's one that doesn't actually rely on pharmaceuticals at all, but rather on something far more fundamental to the universe itself: sound and vibration. It's a pretty profound question, right? What actually happens when the mind is simply too overwhelmed to heal itself? I mean, how do we treat severe trauma or, just profound burnout when the human nervous system is completely locked into survival mode? Traditional cognitive therapies are great, but they usually require a baseline of calm to even begin working. And when a patient is deeply dysregulated, well, talk therapy alone sometimes just can't break through the noise. For a minute there, psychedelic-assisted therapies really seemed like they might be the silver bullet. On one hand, substances like psilocybin and MDMA have shown incredible promise for deep healing and emotional reprocessing. But, the harsh reality is that they carry some pretty significant risks. In fact, in August 2024, the FDA formally rejected the application for MDMA-assisted therapy, citing severe cardiovascular risks and issues with clinical blinding. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for the Explainer today. We'll start with the search for deep healing, meet vibroacoustic therapy, look at the science of cellular massage, see how it supercharges traditional therapy, compare it as a psychedelic equivalent, and finally outline a safer path forward. Section 1, the search for deep healing and the modern mental health bottleneck. So while psychedelic medicine has absolutely dominated the headlines lately, it faces some really severe structural limitations. Psychedelics currently maintain a Schedule I legal status in the US. Plus, a full clinical protocol, that's going to cost anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. It requires up to 8 hours of intense medical supervision per session and features severe exclusion criteria. This means millions of people with cardiovascular issues or certain psychiatric profiles simply cannot safely participate. Basically, even when they do work, they remain structurally inaccessible for the masses. Which brings us to Section 2, meet vibroacoustic therapy, the bottom-up solution. This is where we pivot away from the limitations of chemical interventions and look at an incredibly innovative, non-pharmacological somatic approach. Enter vibroacoustic therapy, or VAT for short. If you've ever felt the bass of a live concert completely rattle your ribcage, you've experienced a chaotic version of this. VAT just takes that concept and refines it into a highly precise therapeutic science. Conceived by Norwegian educator Olav Skille in the late 70s and formally defined in his 1982 protocol, VAT uses pure sinusoidal low-frequency sound waves, specifically between 30 and 120 hertz. Today, organizations like the Soundwell, founded by Abigail Berg, act as the official U.S. representatives of Schille's original protocol, transmitting these therapeutic vibrations directly into the body through specialized mats and recliners. The really key difference here is directional. Traditional talk therapy is top-down, meaning you try to use your mind to calm your body. But VAT, it's bottom-up. It directly regulates your body's physiological state first. By reducing physical tension and shifting the nervous system, it essentially prepares the mind so it can actually receive cognitive healing. Section 3, the science of cellular massage and how frequencies change the body. Now, what's really interesting about this is the biophysics, 40 hertz. This is often referred to as the magic gamma frequency in neuroscience. When VAT is delivered right at 40 hertz, research shows it entrains local brain oscillatory activity. This specific frequency is deeply, deeply associated with heightened consciousness, memory integration, and complex emotional processing. Think about it. Since you are roughly 70% water, you're essentially a giant human tuning fork. These low frequencies travel rapidly right through your tissues, providing what is literally an inner body massage to your organs. And this triggers some amazing biophysical cascades. It activates mechanoreceptors to inhibit pain signals. It modulates the autonomic nervous system, pushing us into that crucial rest and digest parasympathetic state. It entrains our brainwaves. And super importantly, it activates the vagal pathway, which is absolutely critical for emotional regulation. Section 4, supercharging traditional therapy, enhancing CBT and habit change. I love this analogy. Think of it this way. VAT clears the desktop of the mind. If your mental desktop is completely cluttered with the buzzing static of physical anxiety and hyperarousal, well, you can't exactly open a new file, right? By removing those physical barriers of tension, VAT optimizes your inner conditions so that cognitive behavioral therapy can actually take root. So how do therapists actually use this? Here is how they integrate VAT with CBT. First up, the VAT regulation phase. This is about 20 to 30 minutes of deep physiological relaxation. That opens up what's called the critical transition window, which is basically a state of lowered cognitive defense. Finally, the therapist introduces habit replacement. Because the patient is entirely calm, they can pair new cognitive insights and microhabits with a deeply regulated physiological state. The result, profound embodied learning. This state of deep calm also allows for multimodal protocols like VIV plus 2W. That stands for Visualization and Imagery plus Vibroacoustic Therapy, Wellness, and Well-being. By minimizing the overwhelmed mind with VAT, the patient enters a state of light self-hypnosis. This allows vivid visualizations, like, say, imagining your body healing itself, to be embedded deep within the subconscious without any of that usual resistance. Let's move to Section 5 and see how this builds. The psychedelic equivalent, looking at DMN suppression and safety. And this brilliantly illustrates the core thesis of our explainer. When you look at the therapeutic mechanisms, VAT matches psychedelic therapy incredibly well when it comes to autonomic calibration and trauma reprocessing. But then, look at the risk and access barrier profiles. Psychedelics have these massive legal, cost, and side effect burdens. VAT, on the other hand, shows a drastically, and I mean drastically, lower risk profile. You know, one of the main reasons psychedelics work is because they quiet the default mode network, or DMN. That's the brain's main hub for anxious rumination and self-referential thought. But while psychedelics suppress the DMN chemically, that achieves the exact same neurological result through profound present-moment sensory immersion. Your brain simply cannot maintain its anxious thought loops when it's entirely enveloped in this soothing, physical cellular massage. And the accessibility difference is just striking. Psychedelics are Schedule I drugs, VAT is fully legal. Psychedelic sessions can cost thousands of dollars, VAT costs maybe $50 to $200, or you could literally just own the equipment yourself. Psychedelics require hours of intense medical supervision and carry risks like cardiovascular events. VAT requires absolutely no medical supervision, and adverse events are incredibly rare. It's a night and day difference in accessibility. Section 6. A safer path forward. Accessible healing for burnout and trauma. So the crucial point is this. Burnout and trauma are, at their core, dysregulations of the stress response. An exhausted, burned-out nervous system often just cannot handle the intense systemic shock of a full psychedelic trip. VAT, however, gently normalizes cortisol and restores parasympathetic dominance without forcing your body into overdrive. It meets the overwhelmed nervous system exactly where it is. Which is exactly why VAT represents the future of accessible healing. It can be utilized in homes, spas, or clinical settings. It puts the agency right back in the patient's hands since it's easily self-administered. It has extremely low contraindications, meaning almost anyone can use it safely. And it's been validated across hugely diverse populations, from kids with special needs to the elderly. It is, quite simply, radically accessible. Abigail Berg of the Soundwell hits the nail on the head with this quote. That can be viewed as meditation to the cells with no efforts. Really think about that. For those who are just too traumatized or exhausted to sit in silent meditation, this technology basically does the physiological heavy lifting for you. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Homeostasis is all about calibrating your internal energies. With the safe, non-invasive, and deeply effective science of vibroacoustic therapy now right at our fingertips, are we finally ready to tune the orchestra of our inner systems with the power of sound? Thank you so much for joining us on this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and we'll see you next time.